Iya, depan ada orang. Silver from the southeast part of Sulawesi.
Yes, perahu yang dulu nenek moyang kita mengakui seluruh lautan Pasifik dan India.
Nisi. They even go to Singapore.
India. Very well. Namun itu terus.
Penghormatan kepada arwah para pahlawan mulai. Pemerintahan kita mulai.
In all the 27 provinces all over the especially during the ceremonies of various national days, special.
Lampu.
Oh, dokter udah bener tadi.
Bu, matiin lampu. The lamp, please.
Lampu. Awas sih, palanya deh. Bima.
Only the disability stage. Yeah, because we detect him already in advanced stage. But if he's coming in early stage of disease, he won't be like this.
This is from station to small gate of Royal Highness. This is still another one.
Oh, so nice.
Harus tegak? Enggak. Very good. Yes. Ada kunci.
And this is to help you with
Maybe I'll bump into you.
Your Royal Highness, distinguished guests, Ambassador, Mr. Turnbull, colleagues, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here today, and it is of course a particular pleasure to welcome His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales as the Vice Patron of the British Council. We believe this study unit will provide a significant improvement to the facilities we provide here to Indonesians who wish to study English here in Britain.
Indeed. So I'm delighted to see this particular study unit already in operation. And I very much hope that those who are studying on it now will, in fact, find it a useful introduction to Britain. I'm very glad to see that they're learning about haggises and leeks in that, which I'm sure will prepare them extremely efficiently. But this study unit is obviously specifically designed to help familiarize Indonesian students with the latest tools they can expect to see in use, and most probably use themselves as students in Britain. But this unit, as I said earlier, would not have been possible without the foresight and the generosity of BP Indonesia, and in particular its Chief Executive, Mr. John Turnbull, are able to add significantly
Aynı dans işte.
About the price.
Nedir mi?
Not bad.
Neyin var?
Got some curious reasons. You trust the kid.
Teaching the
He's a deep easy.
Well, Master, ladies and gentlemen, I feel slightly concerned about addressing you in front of a collapsing Tower of London, but I suspect it may have been arranged deliberately. But there were just one or two things that I had to say, and that is that I know Britain and Indonesia look back on a long history of contact as trading nations. In 1597, as I'm sure you all know, Sir Francis Drake visited Ternate and Java and recorded that he found there, in his own words, great courtesy and honourable entertainment, as we indeed have found here this evening. The East India Company was granted its first charter in 1600 by Queen Elizabeth I and made its first voyage to Aceh in North Sumatra in the following year. The first English warehouse was established a few years later in Bantam, east of Jakarta. But for reasons of history, rather than logic or commerce, the early English trading posts in Java and Sumatra didn't last. Thus, over the years, our two countries came to know each other less well than we should. But times have changed, I'm delighted to say, and for the better. Indonesia is now a unified and independent nation. Sound economic management has brought about stability and growth. Liberalization, introduced in recent years, is providing the right framework for both foreign and local investment. There is increasing awareness, I think, in Britain of Indonesia's importance and potential. It is a respected member of ASEAN and a voice of moderation among the non-aligned. Indonesia is making its presence felt both as producer and consumer. As the 5th most populous country in the world, Indonesia represents a huge market with abundant human resources. The economy is also diversifying away from reliance on oil and gas and expanding its manufacturing base. So I'm delighted that Britain is making her own contribution through aid and trade. Bilateral agreements on project aid and technical assistance can help to stretch your government's finances. Some £240 million in concessional loans has been on offer, and currently there is about £185 million to be signed up. There are exciting projects, I believe, which are under discussion, and I very much hope that these will come to fruition as soon as possible. Our grants for technical assistance amount to around £10 million per annum. The next aid review begins in Jakarta in a few days' time, and I hope that this cooperation will flourish and that what Britain is offering can be fully taken up. We have always tried to lay stress on trade as a nation of manufacturers and traders. Trade can bring prosperity and foster mutual confidence that is the surest foundation of peace and stability. And it is gratifying, I think, that trade in both directions between our two countries has been growing steadily. The combined total is now approaching £500 million. Last year, Indonesian exports to Britain rose by over 60%, and I congratulate Indonesia's businessmen for doing so extraordinarily well and achieving a positive trade balance with Britain. And I very much hope that British businessmen will be able somehow to match your efforts. British firms have a long history of investment here in Indonesia, first in plantations, next in oil, more recently in manufacturing. British funds are increasingly drawn to your burgeoning stock market, which is no doubt going to provide considerable competition to the British stock market. And this is certainly encouraging. I'm hoping to see some examples of Britain's commercial presence here at the factories of ICI and Burroughs Wellcome during our visit. They do show, I think, how good management, sound technology, and adaptive marketing skills can produce excellent returns on capital to joint venture partners with a willing workforce. So for British businessmen, Indonesia is clearly a substantial market. More importantly, it is a market of the 21st century, which needs to be actively considered today. Its long-term potential will, I am sure, amply reward those with patience and tenacity. 177 million producers and consumers must be worth, I would have thought, considerable attention. As far as Indonesian businessmen are concerned, I would suggest that Britain is a reliable trading partner with the advanced technology and experience to deliver the goods and services which your country needs. Sadly, we are in your country for all too short a time, but nevertheless I hope that this visit will play some part in bringing our two countries closer together. We have much, after all, to learn about each other. A lasting impression which I already have is the optimism and dedication of the Indonesian people and their leaders to the construction of their future. You may rest assured that Britain will continue to play a full part in helping to realize your aspirations.
Allow me to present the heirloom of our ancestors that are being used today only for ceremonies. Formerly we fought against that using this weapon. President of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador of Chile, accompanied by the President of the Republic of Indonesia and Mr. Soeharto, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia and Mrs. Sudarmano will now enter the Pangdam. Please be seated. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang mulia Pangeran dan Putri Wales, para yang mulia dan hadirin yang terhormat. Perkenan saya dan juga istri saya pertama-tama menyampaikan sekali lagi ucapan selamat datang di Indonesia kepada yang mulia Pangeran dan Putri Wales beserta seluruh anggota rombongan. Mudah-mudahan dalam kunjungan ini yang mulia Pangeran dan Putri Wales merasakan kehangatan dan keramah tamahan masyarakat kami. Hal itu mencerminkan eratnya hubungan antara kedua negara kita, juga mengungkapkan betapa Pangeran dan Putri Wales mendapat tempat di hati masyarakat kami. Inggris tidaklah asing bagi kami. Hubungan antara kedua bangsa kita telah berlangsung sejak beberapa abad yang lalu. Sejarah memelihara tanda-tanda dari hubungan lama itu. Sejumlah nama orang-orang Inggris terkemuka tetap tercatat di dalam sejarah kami, diingat dari generasi ke generasi. Sejumlah gedung tetap terpelihara sampai sekarang yang mengabadikan tanda-tanda zaman kehadiran Inggris di tanah air kami itu. Sementara itu, zaman terus berputar. Perubahan-perubahan besar terjadi dalam hubungan antara negara, antara bangsa, antar manusia. Sekarang kita dapat memberikan makna yang berlain-lainan terhadap pengalaman sejarah bersama kita di masa lampau. Sesuai dengan perkembangan zaman, semua bangsa dapat memberikan makna baru, semangat baru, dan tujuan-tujuan baru dalam hubungan antara mereka. Dalam zaman kemajuan sekarang ini, dunia terasa makin menjadi satu. Kesulitan-kesulitan yang dialami oleh suatu bangsa atau suatu kawasan, cepat atau lambat, akan dapat menjadi awal bagi kesulitan bangsa atau kawasan yang lain. Demikian pula sebaliknya, kemajuan suatu bangsa atau suatu kawasan, cepat atau lambat, dapat menjadi kekuatan pendorong bagi kemajuan bangsa lain atau kawasan lain. Semuanya itu membangkitkan kesadaran kita semua bahwa semua bangsa hendaknya bekerja sama, bahu-membahu dan saling menghormati untuk mencapai kemajuan, kesejahteraan, dan keadilan bagi semua bangsa dan semua orang. Makna baru, semangat baru, dan tujuan baru itu berhasil dikembangkan oleh kedua bangsa dan negara kita. Dalam suasana kami sedang giat-giatnya melaksanakan pembangunan, Inggris memberikan bantuan kepada kami. Kami sangat menghargai dan terima kasih atas bantuan itu yang memang kami perlukan. Sejumlah kegiatan pembangunan, baik yang memberi dorongan bagi kemajuan kami selanjutnya, maupun yang langsung mengangkat taraf hidup rakyat, yang mendapat bantuan dari Inggris akan yang mulia saksikan sendiri dari dekat dalam berbagai kesempatan kunjungan ke daerah nanti. adalah menjadi keyakinan saya bahwa kunjungan Yang Mulia Pangeran dan Putri Wales sekarang ini akan makin mempererat tali persahabatan dan saling pengertian antara kedua bangsa dan negara kita. Dari waktu ke waktu, hubungan antara kedua negara kita memang terus bertambah erat. Di tahun 1974, rakyat Indonesia mendapatkan kehormatan untuk menerima kunjungan Sri Baginda Ratu Elizabeth II dan Sri Paduka Duke of Edinburgh. 5 tahun kemudian, saya dan istri saya memperoleh kesempatan untuk mengunjungi negeri yang mulia. Meskipun telah 10 tahun berlalu, saya dan istri saya masih merasakan kenangan indah dan keramah taman pemimpin-pemimpin rakyat Inggris sewaktu menerima kami. Beberapa hari berselang, kami juga telah menerima kunjungan Sri Paduka Duke of Edinburgh. Yang mulia, belajar dari sejarah berbagai bangsa dan pengalaman-pengalaman sendiri, bangsa Indonesia merumuskan pembangunan nasionalnya sebagai pembangunan manusia Indonesia seutuhnya dan pembangunan masyarakat Indonesia seluruhnya. Karena itu pembangunan yang kami lakukan tidak hanya mengejar kemajuan lahiriah saja, juga tidak mengusahakan kepuasan batiniah belaka, melainkan keselarasan, keserasian, dan keseimbangan antara keduanya. Melalui pembangunan, kami memang berusaha keras untuk meningkatkan pendapatan nasional kami. Namun hanya pendapatan nasional yang tinggi saja tidaklah cukup. Ia harus dilengkapi dengan nilai kualitas manusia yang tumbuh berkembang dalam nilai kualitas lingkungan hidup yang makin baik. Dengan demikian, lingkungan hidup merupakan salah satu segi yang tercakup dalam tujuan pembangunan kami. Karena lingkungan hidup menjadi perhatian dalam pembangunan kami, maka dalam merencanakan dan melaksanakan pembangunan, kami selalu memperhitungkan pengaruh-pengaruhnya terhadap lingkungan itu. Karena itu, pembangunan yang kami laksanakan dapat berjalan seiring dengan pengembangan lingkungan pula. Indonesia dianugerahi oleh Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa dengan berbagai kekayaan alam di darat, di laut maupun di udara yang berupa tanah, air, mineral, flora, dan fauna. Salah satu kekayaan alam yang sangat penting bagi kehidupan adalah hutan. Hutan kami yang merupakan hutan tropika, kecuali sangat bermanfaat bagi kami, juga penting bagi kehidupan manusia, karena hutan-hutan tadi merupakan paru-paru dunia. Karena itu kami berusaha untuk menjaga kelestarian hutan-hutan kami dengan sebaik-baiknya pula. Ini merupakan ungkapan dari tanggung jawab kami dalam ikut menjaga keselamatan hidup umat manusia di muka bumi kita yang satu ini. Kami sangat menghargai perhatian Yang Mulia terhadap masalah lingkungan hidup. Masalah lingkungan hidup memang merupakan salah satu masalah yang dihadapi kebanyakan negara yang sedang membangun dan juga negara-negara yang telah maju sehingga merupakan tanggung jawab seluruh umat manusia. Oleh karena itulah, kerjasama antar bangsa-bangsa dalam penanggulangan pencemaran lingkungan hidup perlu terus ditingkatkan. Kami juga sangat menghargai perhatian Yang Mulia berikan kepada kebudayaan Indonesia. Kebudayaan Indonesia yang mengandung nilai-nilai luhur merupakan warisan nenek moyang kami yang perlu terus kami pelihara, kami bina, dan kami kembangkan. Nilai-nilai budaya kami tempatkan sebagai unsur yang penting dalam meningkatkan kualitas hidup, juga untuk memperkuat kepribadian bangsa kami yang merupakan kekuatan untuk mewujudkan cita-cita bangsa kami di masa depan di tengah-tengah dinamika pembangunan dunia itu. Kami senantiasa berusaha untuk mengangkat nilai-nilai budaya daerah yang luhur serta menyerap nilai-nilai dari luar yang positif. Saya berharap mudah-mudahan dalam kunjungan yang sangat singkat ini, Yang Mulia juga dapat memperoleh suatu gambaran mengenai kebudayaan Indonesia yang beraneka ragam itu. Yang Mulia, dewasa ini hubungan bilateral antara Indonesia dan Inggris berkembang bertambah erat dan dalam. Hubungan yang demikian tadi ditandai oleh eratnya kerjasama di berbagai bidang, seperti di bidang ekonomi, perdagangan, sosial budaya, termasuk ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi. Saya berharap mudah-mudahan kerjasama di berbagai bidang tadi akan makin berkembang dan dapat memberikan manfaatnya bagi kepentingan kedua belah pihak. Akhirnya, perkenankanlah saya mengajak hadirin semuanya untuk mengangkat gelas dan bersama-sama minum bagi kesehatan dan kesejahteraan serta kebahagiaan Pangeran dan Putri Wales, dan bagi kebahagiaan Sri Baginda Ratu Elizabeth II beserta seluruh anggota keluarga Kerajaan Inggris Raya, dan bagi kekalnya persahabatan antara Indonesia dan Inggris Raya. Terima kasih.
Your Excellency, President Soeharto, Madam Soeharto, ladies and gentlemen, my wife and I are most grateful to you for your warm welcome and generous hospitality. I refer not only to this evening, but also to the friendly reception we have been given since our arrival in Indonesia. This is not my first visit to your country. I was lucky enough to pay a short private visit to the renowned and beautiful island of Bali in 1975. But this is the first opportunity that my wife and I have had to see more of this fascinating country, about which we have read and heard so much. The first contact between our two countries occurred over 400 years ago, when Sir Francis Drake's ship, the Golden Hind, came to Ternate. In the centuries that followed, our contacts were intermittent, and looking back, not as close as they perhaps should have been. There was one moment in the Napoleonic Wars when our destinies were briefly interwoven, and at the behest of the Prince of Orange, Britain took over the administration of these islands. It was a remarkable event, and not, I believe, an unhappy one. The British government dispatched one of the most inspired of its colonial servants, Stamford Raffles, to govern your lovely islands, and I think that your own historical memory has not failed to pay some tribute to the love he had for your people and culture, the humanity with which he discharged his duties, and the reforms he instituted in the affairs of your diverse communities. When, after a further century or more had passed, our lives were brutally interrupted by another world war, there was a brief period from August 1945 until November 1946 when our two countries' interests were joined. British forces were here to organize the surrender of the Japanese who had invaded it, and to effect the transition from the tragedy of war into the new age where the hungry spirit of colonial peoples was clamoring for recognition. It was by no means an easy period, as those who were here at the time have told me, and at moments we were forced, regrettably, into unhappy conflict. What I have learned of that period in our combined history has been from my great-uncle, Lord Mountbatten, who was then Supreme Allied Commander, Southeast Asia, and through my own close friendship with Sir Lawrence van der Post, one of the best friends your country has had in Britain. Since then, there have been disappointing moments of armed confrontation, But the turning tide of history was happily marked in 1974 by Her Majesty the Queen's state visit to Indonesia and Your Excellency's state visit to London in 1979. I assure you that Her Majesty retains the warmest memories of these occasions, and we hope that the present visit of myself and my wife will help to strengthen these links which we now have forged, and also be a symbol of greater cooperation, harmony, and purpose to come. Indonesia has considerable achievements to look back on with pride. You have stability. You enjoy a rich variety of cultures and languages. You have now cemented this in national unity, unity in diversity, as you yourselves put it. And you have diversified your production base and have a rate of economic growth attractive to investors and traders around the world. But this is only a beginning. I do not doubt that Indonesia and her people will continue to progress scientifically, politically, economically, and commercially without sacrificing that cultural heritage which has long fascinated outsiders. You have, I may say, many friends who wish you well and are happy to be associated with your progress. Certainly Britain would like to count itself in the front rank amongst these friends. She has much to offer in skills, technology, and inventiveness. Just as Britain produced the first steamship, the first commercial jet, the first gas turbine, and the first vertical takeoff aircraft, so Britain now has other inventions and products to assist in improving your communications and transport. Similarly, just as Britain introduced vaccination, antiseptic surgery, and the use of chloroform, so we now have medical technology and products to improve healthcare and treatment. Education is one respect in which I hope our visit will make a contribution. As Vice Patron of the British Council, I have seen clearly the important work they do here and have opened today a new centre devoted to improving the training of your young officials in English and to increasing the number of students studying in our colleges and universities. There are other things which we can do together. One is assuring the protection of the global environment, perhaps the biggest challenge of all that we face today, whether in the north or the south. Indonesia has marvelous resources, and I know you recognize that these must be developed for the benefit of your own country and the world as a whole. There is now much talk about sustainable development. It reminds us that the world's resources, be they oil, gas, minerals or coal, fisheries or rainforests, are not inexhaustible. Some are finite and cannot be renewed. Others can be replenished with greater or lesser difficulty, provided we think and act now. Wherever we live, we have to remember that succeeding generations will judge us on how well we managed our planet's resources. In this regard, we in the developed world certainly made mistakes during the first industrial revolution, at a time when no one would listen to the few 19th century conservationists who existed. It is therefore important in the North to understand the particular challenges you face in the developing world. On the one hand, there is the urgent need to exploit available resources, to increase growth, and thereby improve conditions for the rapidly increasing number of citizens. Against this, of course, there is the risk of overexploitation, which not only affects the environment, but can also threaten long-term economic progress, and will bring upon us the recrimination of our children if we exhaust their inheritance. I know that the Indonesian government is very mindful of this problem and has recently introduced further measures to protect the environment and to control the exploitation of the rainforest. I am glad to learn that our experts and yours are currently looking at ways in which our two governments can cooperate, especially on the problems of forestry resources. These then, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, are some of the things that I hope we can all bear in mind for the future. But there is something of personal concern to my own thinking about the future with which I would like to end. It is this: something happened here in Jakarta in November 1946, which gives me great hope for an increase in our mutual collaboration in the future. By November of that year, the time had come for the British armies in Indonesia to withdraw. When the moment of withdrawal came, your provisional government and its Prime Minister, Sultan Syariah, invited the troops on the headquarters staff and garrison of Batavia to a farewell dinner. I need not stress, ladies and gentlemen, how remarkable in those turbulent and confused days this event was. In an address at the dinner, Syariah also said this to the British and Indian soldiers: even in unfriendly contact or in conflict with us, we learnt to appreciate and admire you. You introduced to our country by your personal qualities some traits of Western culture which our people have rarely seen in similar measure in Western people before. I mean your politeness, your kindness, your dignified self-restraint. Long after you have gone, when the wounds caused by war and revolution of the last year will have healed, I think this will be the lasting memory for our people of your stay in our country. I remind you of this tonight not because I want to praise the British people, but for what it tells me about your own people. I refer to an inborn capacity on your part to reject what is negative in the past and to bring into the present what is positive, so that the future can be met with an undistorted spirit, free of bitterness and hate. I hope that in some way we can go forward not only in our relationships with one another, but with the rest of mankind in the spirit that Syariah, on your behalf, expressed that night. Mr. President, I raise my glass to the peace and the prosperity of the people of Indonesia and to friendship between our two countries.